In this video, we're walking through key features for building a SaaS app on Bubble. Software as a solution can apply to a big range of industries, but we've learned that there are certain features and designs that you want to work in regardless of the content. So make sure that you stick around because you don't want to miss out on these. We're also going to jump into a Bubble editor to point out some important settings for this type of app. We're going to start by looking at a couple of live SaaS apps built on Bubble, just so that you can see what's possible. We're going to start here with Zoidi, which is a computerized maintenance management system, or CMMS for short. And this is specifically for maintenance managers and or technicians within organizations to completely track and log and really run all of their work order operations. So I'm going to kind of point out the different functionality that this application offers. So again, you can see what's really possible here in a SaaS environment. So here we have work orders. We've got preventative maintenance, mobile maintenance for technicians that are on the go, inventory management to keep track of all of the different parts and statuses, things like that. Just scrolling down here a little bit, you can see that the users of this application at the end of the day are organizations, but in a team environment, so to speak, so that users within the organizations can collaborate with one another. They can communicate, status updates, be able to hand things off from one step to another within the work order itself. I'm going to open up the detail page here for the primary product. There's CMMS here, just so we can see a little bit more about functionality. So at the heart of everything is the management of the work order itself. So users can input all of this data. If they need to upload files, they can assign things to different users. And be able to log that into the system. Very similar here for preventative maintenance, right? Be able to upload images, assign things to other users, label things with a certain priority. Here we have inventory management. So you can see here, again, you can view all of the details. There's a lot of search features and functionality going on here that you can take advantage of. Checklists that are also customizable. The interface also supports a drag and drop to make it really easy to work with, right? Tasks, subtasks, basically your standard features that you would expect from any kind of project management type of system. Of course, you have dashboards and reports so that you can gather important insights from all of the data that's being generated from the users, interacting with this application. Okay, so that's just an overview of the type of functionality you can find in a SaaS app built on Bubble, where really at the end of the day, it's up to you as the builder to put all of these different things together and ensure that the logic allows this data to flow between these different, feature sets. So that everyone is always on the same page as far as the work order getting completed. Our next live SaaS app built on Bubble is Ontario app, and this is for the curtain and blind industry, specifically for designers, manufacturers, retail store owners, decorators, so that they can complete their custom jobs. So we're going to scroll down here to see some of the functionality that this application offers, so that again you can see what's possible. First, we have a product library. Okay, so a manufacturer of fabrics can organize all of the different materials that they have to offer and can add to quotes. You can see that it's been designed in a way that makes it easy for users to identify the fabrics with the images. They've got search and filtering functionality here. Moving over to quoting and management, with these jobs, they're often done for an entire space, not just a single room, but maybe an entire home. So they're going to organize things by rooms in a very custom way. Every individual room could have different preferences going on. So this gets very, very detailed, very quick, with all sorts of calculations happening behind the scenes in terms of the type of fabric and then the length and the quantities, all of the costs that need to be added onto it, basically to build out those quotes. Then overall project and CRM management, right? So if you're a project manager, you need to be able to have this, bigger picture view of all of the jobs currently in progress, the different statuses, see any internal notes, communication with other users that you're working with, right, on your team. So this just gives you that project management type of space. And then you have your workshop here, which is where the final quotes get put together. You can see, the actual due dates for the invoices, any status updates from the customer. Basically, all of these different sections are to support the completion of a job. And because this industry has very specific components to the job, this app has been designed to make it easy to work through all of those details. Scrolling down here a little bit further, we can also see, similar to the other application, that the users of this are really organizations, they're companies, they're businesses. And that's typically the type of customer that you'll find within a SaaS application. And then within those companies or organizations, you have teams of people collaborating with one another. There are actually several similarities between these two SaaS apps, even though they're in completely different industries. First, at the heart of both of these apps is really the data management. They're organizing and visualizing a lot of data in really specific ways for the industry and for the various user roles that are interacting with this data. So whether it is how data is input into the system, how a list of items are presented and searched through, or how calculations are happening, the data management is really what's connecting all of these users together to keep things organized and help them get through their work. Second similarity is the fact that there's actually multiple products or tools that are all coming together. So whether it is a calculator in one screen and then a quoting system in another, or an inventory manager in another, there's generally multiple systems that all have to communicate together, so that, again, the command center is complete, that this is the one place you go to for total operations. That's very common with SaaS apps and absolutely achievable on the Bubble platform. Another similarity that we're seeing is who these apps are for. Not necessarily the industry, but for the fact that they're for organizations and teams, right? Businesses where multiple people within an account or an organization can come together and collaborate. So you have the ability to create different communication systems between users, whether that's through a chat feature or comments, notifications, things like that, so that everybody stays on the same page. All right, now because data management is such a critical part of any SaaS application, I want to walk you through some important ways of organizing your database structure to ensure that data is kept separate between organizations and that you're helping yourself as much as possible to create proper privacy rules, different access rights for different roles, even within a single organization. The first thing you'll want to do is add a data type for the account or the organization as a whole. This is going to be sort of that top level parent record in your database. So I'm going to create a new data type here called account. So you can have details within this data type, such as the name of the account. If you want to do a special ID, I'm just going to do a text here. If you want to have location, website, logo, anything that describes that sort of parent level, that's what you want to organize in that particular data type. Okay. Now, every other data type that you add to your database, you want to relate it back to the account record. So you can see here we have a data type for customer. Now, customers are not typically shared between organizations, so you want to make sure that the customer record has a relationship. I'm going to add a new field here to that account, right? So I'm going to type in related account for the name of this field, and this is going to be a relationship to my new account data type that I had just created, right? This relationship field here alone allows you to create important separation of your data, especially if you're building your SaaS app in a single application where it's a single shared database. We're going to talk about separate databases a little later on in this video, but it's important to remember that every single data type where it needs to be separated by account or organization, that you have this relationship field here. I'm going to show you another example, right? Transaction. Let's do another related account like this, and this is going to be tied back to that account. So imagine if you have a tree, a hierarchy tree, the account is at the very top. And everything that is tied back to the account comes below it. The customer tied back to that parent account. The transaction tied back to that parent account. Now you can take this as many levels deep as you need to for your industry. For example, some organizations are actually broken down into different locations. So you think about like a franchise system. And if the data actually needs to be organized by location, then that's another level that you want to add here. So if I add a location data type, right, this will have its own location name. We'll put a text field here. We'll also have a relationship back to the parent account, right? So we'll do account like this, and this is account. I'm going to put in the word related. I always like to, anytime I have a relationship field, I like to indicate that with some kind of a prefix, whether it's related or child or parent, just to give me a clue that the value of this field is actually pointing to another record rather than this being just the name of the account, for example. So now that I have a location, I could come back to my customer record and say, all right, well, this is a customer of not just this account, but also of a very specific location, right? Like this, related location, very similar structure here. So you want to make sure that you address the hierarchy of all of your data types appropriately here, especially within a SaaS environment, because if your primary customer is an account, you want to make sure that users within that account aren't seeing customers, locations, transactions for other accounts. Okay, these relationship fields here are going to help you create the privacy rules you need to create that important security. So for example, let's actually add, before we do the privacy rule example, I'm going to add some relationships here to the user. So I'm going to create a field under the user to say which account that they belong to. Related account, again, same thing right here. Okay, so as a user who is logging into this application, I should only have access to details that are tied to the same account I am. So under privacy, if I go to, let's say customer, right? Let's say I want to access a CRM of sorts. I want to search through all the customers within the account. I would want to create a privacy rule here to say, let's call this account customers. This is the name of my rule, where as long as the customer in question, if their related account is the same as my related account, okay, so current user's related account, then I have access to searching through those customer details. I can find them in database searches. The point is that I'm granting access to this type of user where they share that account. And everyone else, notice how I'm deselecting all of this, everyone else is restricted from accessing it. You have to meet these conditions in order to gain access to those records. And for a SaaS environment, the account record at the very minimum is going to be the first layer you want to incorporate across your entire database so that all account related data is, is separated so that things don't bleed between different accounts. Now, let's take this one step further and incorporate user permissions into this, which is going to be very common for a SaaS environment because typically you'll have team members that aren't all at the same permission level. You may have managers, right? Project managers, supervisors versus employees or even guests that are accessing the application. So the first thing that I would want to do is define all of the possible roles that we would find in this application. So I'm going to add a new option set for this. We're going to call this user role. And my choices are going to be manager and employee. We'll keep this simple for now, right? But you could have as many, of these different choices that you want. And then within the user data type, I need to define the user's particular role. So I'm going to create a new field here called role, and this will tie back to that option set. And so now the user not only belongs to a certain account, but they have a specific role within that account. And what does this field also allow me to do? So like I was talking about before with the privacy rule, I can now separate the type of access a user has based on their role, not just them belonging to an account, but now based on their role. So we're going to modify this here. Let's say that this is account customers for manager, right? They have full access to all the customers, but it's going to be a little bit different. Account customers for employee, they're going to have more limited access to the customers. So this rule will say, as long as this customer's related account is the current user's related account and the current user's role is employee, they're going to have less access. Let's say that they can't view all of the fields. Let's say that they can view their status and their ID, but maybe no other details. I'm just kind of choosing here randomly. Whereas the manager, and I do have to add to this to specify, and the current user's role is manager, they have full access. We'll allow them to view all fields. So both manager and employee need to be tied to the same account, but because they have different roles, they're going to have slightly different levels of access to the customer record. And so that kind of option set allows us to get even more granular with the permissions. Now I'm going to take this even further. Let's say that you have users who have access to multiple locations, but maybe different permissions within each location. Let's say that I'm a manager at one location, but just a regular employee at another, but I should still be able to access both locations. Well, it's going to get a little tricky to have a list of locations under the user and then a list of roles because we wouldn't know how to pair them, right? Which role belongs to which location. This is where we would instead of the system we have here under the user record, we create a separate data type. You can think of this as a join record instead that gives you better control over a many-to-many type of relationship. So I'm going to create a type here called user permission, like this. And what this would do is join the user, first of all, right? The manager, the employee, whoever they are, this is the user record. We would also combine it with, we're going to join it with the location in question, okay? And then we'll also define the role that they have at this location. Okay, so this is our option set. And like I said before, you always want to make sure that you relate it back to the most parent organization or account record. Okay, even though, there's a little bit of redundancy here, right? If we know the location, in theory, we know the account because the location is tied to the account as well. But to really keep things very clean and consistent and also to make things easier in your privacy rules, it is okay to be a little bit redundant here and kind of overly specify, hey, this permission is not just for this location, but also this account. It also gives you just different pathways to create for your privacy rules and just other conditional logic that you may have in your designs, your workflows, things like that. Okay, now notice that this one record is a unique combination between the account, location, role, and the user. So this user could technically have two permission records, one for each location. Let's say that there's two locations that they belong to with different roles. They are a manager at location A and an employee at location B, right? So two separate records for the same user, for the same account, allows us to separate what they can and cannot do and see by the location. And again, not every SaaS app is going to go this deep into the permission levels. It may be just fine to have the account or the location that the user belongs to if it's only ever going to be one saved directly to the user record. So make sure that you understand what's going to be the most appropriate for your application's structure and know that this is one of the first steps that you'll want to take when you're creating your database architecture. One of the key characteristics of a SaaS application is that it's generally multi-tenant in structure. So multiple organizations are signing up to your app to use all of the features, but the data that they're working with has to stay isolated. They can't be seeing data from other organizations. And the way that you define a user's relationship to the data, to the account, is through that data structure. It's up to you to configure that. And so that's why it's important to do that early on, because everything a user does when they're interacting with your app is happening within the context of their level of access to those pages, the menus, the functions, and so on. Hey, real quick, if you're finding this helpful, take a look at our free extended workshop over at coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop, where we'll guide you through our 4-phased approach for taking you from idea to app. If you're looking for a complete start to finish guide, you're going to enjoy this workshop. We have the link on the screen right now and in the description below. The next key feature that I want to talk about for SaaS apps is pricing. How are these applications being sold? So if we jump back into this example app, I'm going to go over to their pricing page. And we're going to see that they're offering a pretty standard subscription system. This is very common for SaaS apps, is to do subscriptions. So here they can pay monthly or annually. We've even got different currency options to choose from. And for every tier, you get access to a certain number of features here, right? And the higher the tier you go, the more access to things you have. Now, I do want to call out that the pricing here is per user. This is also very common for SaaS apps because it's expected that multiple users within an organization are going to be joining in, logging in, and collaborating within the application. So it's very common to see a seat-based pricing for SaaS apps. Let's jump over to the other application here. We're going to go to their pricing page as well. And here you can also see another subscription system, monthly offering. I don't know if we have an annual that we can switch to, but they do have 3 different tiers. You can see that they're listing out all of their features. The higher in tiers you are, you can access more. Now, they handle the user system a little bit differently. Every tier is going to come included with a certain number of users. So you're not paying kind of as you go. Basically, if you choose the basic plan, you only get 1 user. If you need more users, you have to upgrade to the next plan. If you need more than the 2 here, then you have to upgrade to the enterprise, and basically they unlock the user limit there. So a slightly different system, but note that they do make the user count a part of the pricing. I also want to call out that they're offering a free trial here, and I believe this other application also offers that as well. You know, usually SaaS apps tend to be a little bit bigger of a commitment, and so offering a free trial or a demo of some kind can help with the number of signups, right? Be able to get their trust, right? Incentivize them to try it out for a little bit, actually be convinced that it's something that is worthwhile before they make the jump and actually subscribe and make a payment here. Now, you might be wondering, how do you actually go about incorporating a subscription system into your SaaS application? Well, the first thing you'll want to do is identify a payment gateway to process all of your transactions. Stripe is one of the more popular payment gateways that we've seen with Bubble apps. It's very friendly in terms of integration systems. There are plenty of plugins for Stripe. Bubble even has a plugin, like an official Bubble plugin for it. There's also others. You also always have the ability to use the API connector, which is another Bubble plugin, but it's more of an API tool to create custom connections to Stripe's API, so that you have complete control over how you create and manage subscriptions, payments, customers, things like that. Stripe is certainly not the only payment gateway out there. There are plenty of others. I do encourage you to do your research and find the one that's going to be a best fit for your business. You know, users in specific countries may want to go with one that's more popular or local to where they are, based on fees, things like that. But as long as the payment gateway that you want to use offers an API, you should be able to integrate with it. Now, if you are going to use Stripe, I want to take you through a Stripe dashboard here. We're in a test mode environment. So that you can see where you would need to go to get started with organizing your different product offerings and pricing plans. So within the product catalog area of the Stripe dashboard, you'll want to start by creating a product. Now, this is sort of the parent level of a product. Now, within the product, you can have multiple pricing plans. So if I were creating a product for a SaaS application, I would just give this the name of, you know, SaaS app, or, you know, the name of my app. This is not yet any of my individual tiers, okay? So this is kind of the main thing here. I'm going to leave all of these things empty. I'm going to actually show you once you have created a product where you can go to manage it, so that you know how to edit things. But technically, you can start to create your pricing plans down below. Okay, so for now, I just have the name of my product. So I'm going to click Add Product. Oop, it looks like it is requiring us to create at least one pricing plan. So let's do that. So let's say my first tier is going to be $99. This is a subscription, so we're going to mark recurring here, and we'll make this the monthly option. So we'll click on Add Product there. Okay, so this has created my SaaS application. I'm going to open this up, and you can see there's my first pricing plan. Now, if I wanted to add another pricing option, I'm going to click on this plus here. You can see Add Price to SaaS Application. So again, another recurring. I'm going to choose flat rate is the most common. Okay, basically it means that it's going to be the same price no matter what every single billing cycle. Okay, it does not change. So let's say that I do a $2.99 offering here. And again, this is monthly. We're going to create the price. Okay, so you see I can start to build all of the different options here. All right, I'm going to create one more here so that we can do an annual offering. So let's say we have a $9.99. Like this, the billing period is going to be yearly. Notice that there's a lot of different options here. We can also create a custom option. All right, and you have a few other details that you can configure related to tax, some internal descriptions, things like that. So again, we're building this out here. Now I'm going to add one more price, which is going to be a one-off, so a one-time charge here, just to kind of demonstrate that you can add this as well to the product. Let's say that we do a $100 consultation, fee if they want to get like an audit or meet with someone live, get some sort of coaching or something like that. So I'm going to create the plan here. And this is something that they could potentially purchase multiple times. The point is that you're going to build all of the possible things that you're going to sell at all of the possible variations. Once you have this price list organized, now you have specific IDs that you can use for your integrations, whether it's with a plugin, with the API connector, right? You have your product ID over here, and then you can see within each individual price, you have a price ID. So I just copied that to clipboard. You can also open it up again and it'll take you to a detailed page for it. We have access to the price ID here. You can also see it in the URL. Okay, so be very aware of where you're at in your product catalog so you're referencing the correct IDs. Now, I do want to point out that Stripe specifically has a feature called pricing table, which could save you a little bit of time in terms of building and designing, a pricing area that looks similar to this, right? We see this design here. We also see this here. You can, of course, do these custom designs directly in your app, but I do want to call out this feature that Stripe has because it can be very helpful for you. So what I'm going to do is go over to one of my recurring prices. So let's say the $99 a month, and I'm going to select create new pricing table. This is a little bit of a shortcut to get here. You can also get to pricing table management under the various products and also your settings here. So I'm going to click on create new pricing table. And then I'm also going to add another price. Let's add the $9.99 a year option. So you see that Stripe is actually building out this pricing table design for me. It's going to be fully designed as well as functional. So the user can switch between these two here. You have control over the different colors, right? Things like that. If I added that other monthly price, so that was the $2.99, you're going to see the second tier show up there, right? So again, that's why you want to create all of the different possible options so that you have everything to then build out this page. Once you have your pricing table created, you're going to get a snippet of code. Let's actually go ahead and just hit continue on this. Okay, to many more settings here. So this is just going to take you through what happens with the payment page, the confirmation. I'm just going to click through to the very end. Yes, we're going to click on finish. Lots of different things that you can set up here. Ultimately, what you're going to get is this snippet of code like this. Okay, what you'll do is you'll copy this code. You're going to go into your bubble editor, and let's go into an empty page here. Let's just create a new page called pricing. And on your page, you're going to add an HTML element. This is a native bubble element that's not coming from a plugin. So an HTML element here. And I'm going to paste in that code that Stripe gave me. Okay. And now I'm just going to preview this page so that you can see just from that, with minimal setup, I instantly have my pricing table already designed here, ready for me to move forward with this. If I click on subscribe, it's going to, redirect me to a Stripe hosted page to do the payment. Now, this, of course, also requires you to have other areas of API integration involved. You may want to incorporate webhooks so that as soon as the payment is made, you have a backend workflow that can respond to that payment. That way you can create records, send emails, do whatever you need to do. But as far as the actual payment interface goes, this is a nice, lovely shortcut that Stripe has available for you here. This is not the only way to integrate. Like I said, you can use other plugins within Bubble. You can design it completely from scratch using repeating groups and buttons, things like that. But I did want to call it out because, again, Stripe is a very popular payment gateway to use and integrates quite well with Bubble. Now, jumping back into the data types area of the editor here, there are two data types that at minimum I would suggest you add to support, logging all of the information around the subscription for the accounts. The first data type is the subscription plan. Okay, so this is a generic data type where you organize your plan names, the prices, the billing frequency, and the Stripe ID that is generated from that pricing plan. Okay, so you create all of the fields for that. So this is not unique to any specific account. This is essentially the same as the product list that we saw or the pricing plan list that we saw in the Stripe dashboard. The second data type that I would recommend is the actual subscription per account or organization, right? So I'm going to create a data type here called account subscription. So this would have a relationship to the plan that they're currently on. So let's say current plan, and we relate this to the subscription plan record, which has the IDs and everything. But you'll also have a field for their unique subscription ID, right? Every single time an account is subscribes to you, that's going to generate its own entity in the Stripe system. And so you're going to want to also record that unique ID because you'll need that for things like canceling, for looking them up, to get details, right? So this would be a text field here. Now, in addition to this, it's kind of up to you, like what you want to log, what's going to help support different flows and features in your app. You may want to have a status option set, right? Is the subscription active? Is it trialing? Is it canceled? You may want to have a field that relates to the person who is responsible for the billing. Who is the one who is, maybe there's a billing manager, maybe they're the one with the credit card. And if that user ever changes over time, you can just swap out that user, right? The subscription here is actually representative of the account and not necessarily a specific person. You can have dates under this data type for when they subscribed, when they canceled, things like that. Okay, so be mindful of the information that you need to save so that everything is documented, everything's easy to look up, even if it is a little bit redundant between your app and Stripe. You do want the payment gateway to be fully responsible for storing the sensitive financial info like credit card numbers, things like that. You don't need to save those things here. Really at minimum, what you want to save in your database are the IDs, because that's what will get you, through the API connections to all of the other information you need and be able to trigger functions like starting a subscription, downgrading, upgrading, changing, payment methods and things like that. Now, the next key item that I want to talk about here for SaaS apps is data visualizations. SaaS apps are typically serving businesses, and the users within those businesses need to be able to look at their data, be able to quickly extract important insights so that they can make critical decisions for operations. And we'll often see this done through charts and graphs. I'm currently on a design inspiration site here to kind of point out some trends that we're seeing in terms of SaaS analytics. So I've just typed in this generic term, SaaS analytics, not specifying an industry or anything beyond that. And you can see that as I scroll through these different designs, something that's jumping out at me immediately is that all of these pages are highlighting some form of a chart or a graph, and many of these pages actually have multiples, many different types. So let me go into this example here. Let's open up this image, right? So I can grab a lot of information just by looking at this one screen. Graphs and charts really tell stories very effectively because you can gather insights quite quickly. It is important to use the right type of chart and graph for the data, so that's something that you'll need to figure out for the content that you're working with. But it is a feature that we see very common in SaaS applications, is using data visualizations to help the users gather the insights they need as efficiently as possible. We see this as well with that sample application that we were looking at. I can tell that they're using Bubble's basic chart plugin. That's really helpful for really simple data points. If you just have a single series, that works well enough. You can split things up into a pie chart. You can organize things by dates, by numbers, things like that. But if you are looking to get more kind of robust visualizations, I do encourage you to look through Bubble's plugin library to go through some other chart options. There are a couple of premium options that I want to point out here. These are paid plugins, but very worthwhile. They offer, let's say here, 80 plus different types of charts that you can work with, and just kind of scrolling through their demo page, you can see they're very modern designs. They support multiple series. They can be interactive here. Many different formats for data visualization. This particular one is the charts.js plugin. If we go to another one here, this is the Apex Charts plugin. Very similar in terms of the types of charts that they offer. I think it's also, several dozen that they have here. They've got different demo pages that you can take a look at. I do encourage you, if you're interested in looking at premium plugins, to look through their demo pages, their demo editors, to make sure that they actually support the type of chart that you need for your SaaS apps data. Now, another important feature here that we see with SaaS applications is having the ability to white label your product. This may actually be a really important feature that could make or break an organization's commitment to your app. Let's say, for example, that you are building a survey generator. That is your product. And your users, which are companies, are signing up to your app to create custom surveys that they will then send to their customers or their clients, whoever it might be. But they may not want their customers and clients to see your name, right? You as the SaaS platform. They want to white label it. So they want to put in their branding, their colors, their names. They may even want to customize the domain in the URL. Now, a lot of this is very achievable with a single application. You can always organize a data type in your database to dynamically swap out colors and pictures and things like that, logos. But if you're looking to fully brand the URL, then you need to take advantage of Bubble's sub-app capabilities. Sub-apps are separate applications. They're derived from one primary app, so it all functions the same. But a sub-app allows you to connect each individual application to its own domain, so that's a big white labeling step there. And they're separate apps, so they come with their own databases. So looking back when we were talking about creating privacy rules and separating data between organizations, having separate databases altogether gives you a completely different level over that security and data separation, because independent databases is automatically separating the data for you. You also have a host of other benefits around sub apps. Now, you do have to be on a higher tier plan to take advantage of this capability, but they are very suited to SaaS applications, which tend to be multi-tenant in structure. It just gives you a little bit more flexibility in terms of white labeling other areas, not just the domain, but also emails that are sent from the application, plugin settings, API keys, things like that. All right, I hope this was helpful. And if it was, the content you're about to see on the next screen will help you take things even further.